So that's what you have to look at is what type of scenario am I expecting that Performance Max campaign to be doing? And sometimes it could be remarketing. Sometimes it could be middle funnel engagement. And sometimes it could be really, top of funnel engagement a lot. I'll give you a good example.
Well, quick point on that though. So when it comes to the feeder strategy, right? We're going to kind of go back into, benchmarks, and that's sort of the be all, the shopping feeder, by the way. That's the starting point. So if we're seeing results of, let's say, increase, so you're looking at, and this comes back down to just incrementality, and I'm just restating this for everyone. It's that you increase something, what happens? And then you figure out, okay, a lot of new customers landed in the Performance Max that you just showed. Therefore, that spend caused this reaction. What does that tell you about the funnel? Well, when we spend more, we get more when we spend more on Meta, we get more new customers in Performance Max. Well, we know then, okay, Meta is the driver of new customers because we increase spend, we have higher volume. Therefore, we now know that Performance Max is the bottom of funnel or middle of funnel of that process, and Meta is not getting attributed. So that's like the baseline logic of it all. But the question then,
in that scenario, I would have to assume that Performance Max is also showing up for brand, though.
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Then yeah,
couldn't you stress test that though and keep pushing Facebook? And if Performance Max continues to increase on cold traffic and get more efficient without in more volume without spend, would you think that could also technically be an indicator, not like 100%, but still like greater than, let's say, 50% indicator?
Yeah, it will always have a function of gaining cold traffic conversions for sure. The question is, what percentile of the total is that? Which then would mean how much more budget do I have to actually add to that campaign to affect that smaller minority number?
Right.
So every $100 only gets you 20 new customers, but gets you 100 customers. Then yes, you're a 1/5 perpetuated NCAC.
Right. So with that being said, now that's the e-commerce side of things. So for the taking shots over there.
I know, right? This is just moonshine in my jar.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something, Caden. New customers,
where do they come? Just run it. We just have a stream just like that. Gosh,
just
that'd be crazy. Yep, this is what we do on a Tuesday.
We're horrible. I'm eating during the whole presentation, and we're joking about being drunk. Sorry, everyone. We'll get back on track.
But so with that being said, standard shopping with feeder, you can look at NCAC. So how would you look at the feeder strategy for our lead generation, people out there that are like, hey, I'm running feeder 2, I'm running max clicks, and I'm running that conversion-based bidding. Can I look at like my CRM tool to then figure out new customers that way? What's kind of the difference between standard shopping and PMax versus max clicks on search with conversions on search? What's kind of the differences there?
Yep, and it's kind of the same way. So this is, you're kind of seeing like how the sausage is made. This is the other agency. Now I'm going to draw on the screen here because this is a lead generation. It's a company that's basically like Airbnb for RVs. Really simple. You rent RV
Airbnb for RVs.
Yeah, it's like Airbnb kind of thing. AirRVing.
Oh, ARV.
Right. So it's called RV Easy, but it's an Airbnb for RV renters. I can rent my RV to you peer to peer. These are all on search. This is Performance Max. Now, I don't have this last week data. This is a previous week data, but long story short, one extreme scenario is taking an all others, which is every other state in the country besides these here. Can we find other pockets of opportunity? Because Performance Max last year was kick ass. I was like, okay.
So you're running Performance Max for lead generation.
Performance Max for lead generation. Yep.
We should dive into that after this.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is we went from $877 in ad spend up to $7,200 in week 1 through week 2, 7/13 to 14 through 20. Our new customers went from 74 down to 68. Our repeat went from 8 up to 13, and our NCAC went from $11 to $107. Because the $11 NCAC that it was getting at 877 were the same exact actually repeats went up and new went down. It was basically the good kind of organic traffic that always happens in those other areas that PMax always just naturally takes credit for since the beginning of time. and it says, hey, I'd like to just arbitrarily spend a lot more for the same amount of people. It's like, no, here's 5 more returning. Now your new went down by what was that, 74 to 68, 6. So we actually lost new and returning totals. We went down by 1 after adding in $7,000 in 1 week time period. We did that for a week 3 at up to 10 grand, which is what I was hoping to have. And that was, now our new customers are down into, I think, the low 50s or high 40s.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, it got perpetually worse. I'm like, there should never really be a time period where we add in $7,000, which is way more than any other concentrated spend besides California. And this thing go way wrong. Everyone was high-fiving each other because like, we ran PMAX, it's getting $100 NCACs. I'm like, comparative to everything else. Yeah, that sucks. But do you know it used to get 11 because it wasn't producing anything contributing into it? This is everybody's 500% PMAX that everyone has, just floating around in their Google Ads campaign that they're afraid to shut it off because it looks good.
Yeah,
that's that. And so that's where you have to look at is, okay, fine, doing lead generation. These are new requests coming in to see. They're not even fulfilled yet. They're not even a customer. It's just the amount of new requests that are coming in are decreasing. So lead generation, not even actual like new customers, lead generation of new is going down. And that one is like, well, is it new returning sales? Okay, it's e-commerce or it's lead generation. Cool. Is it new returning leads? Well, damn it.
Yeah.
Though that's all right, fine. Same scenario. So I've had nothing but years of this same data. Performance Max, very little is like, oh, thank God we had it. I very rarely ever have a time where I'm like, man, if we didn't run Performance Max, this wouldn't work. I've had many times where I'm like, we only ran Performance Max and it didn't work. But I usually use Performance Max like an insurance policy. It is going to get some sort of click attribution where they found them and converted them. Great. You find them remarketed, I'll take them. You find them on YouTube, I'll take them. They Google the brand, I'll take them. But I'm not going to look at that and say, okay, keep doing that faster. Look how good you are at 500% ROAS, because that thing will just tank, or 10xing of your NCAC really instantaneously. So what you have to look at is, if you have to pick a metric that you're gonna track next week and 16 years from now. What is that successful metric? Is the amount of returning customers 16 years from now, or is 100%? Because that's only a 2x. So that's where you have to look at, well, what about new customers? Okay, if you're going to measure that growth over the next 16 years of growing your customers and new customers, you still have to measure it the same way.
Yeah. So pick your KPIs. Don't look at ROAS. Pretty standard. Standard conversations here, right? NCAC, MER, exactly. Looking at overall just the differences between cold and warm traffic. If you have third-party tools to figure out, then I think that's a really good, because I mean, there is use cases for Performance Max, right? Like we're not just saying like never run it, because like, for example, and we talk about this in the school community, it's all about based on the buyer journey. Like, do you need that extra like kick in the face a few times to purchase something, right? Like if you're looking at like a 2 to 3 day lag time, you're probably not really needing Performance Max. If you're looking at a 7, 8, 9, 2 week, 3 week, then you're probably going to need a little bit of that. But I think people forget the display is so cheap. And so they think, oh, I can have I need to have like 10% of the budget for Performance Max. Like you might only need like $30 a day, and it would do like everything that it needs to do for a brand that's like, grossing over 50K a week or a month.
And that's what's crazy is it might be the bad part that we'll never be able to identify is inside of Performance Max. Let's say we have 100 sales. And let's say they're 100 new. Technically, could even be 100 first click, depending upon the attribution tool you're using, because they all kind of suck.
Yeah, it's looking really good, and it says new customers, even when it's imported. Yeah.
What I want to know is how many of those people actually made the decision because of Performance Max, rather than made the decision in spite of. Made the decision is the key piece there. We've circled so fucking far around the block that went from PMAX is the greatest since sliced bread all the way around to, okay, like how do we even measure Performance Max is worth it? And we're grasping at straws, whereas like, is it good for new returning? But yes, for everything, ROAS is high. Now kind of even better for returning customers, while also can't scale new and
can't see the channel it's serving on.
Right. Yeah. So it almost it kind of like we're now coming to, are we making an excuse to to keep PMAX on, or do we actually have a need to fulfill this? And why wouldn't Display, YouTube, or even Advantage Plus and Meta take care of that for us? I've been finding less and less reasons to use Performance Max lately. The negative keyword thing. So you remember negative keywords came into Performance Max?
Yep.
Those are also suggestions, and it will take 14 days to optimize out of those negative keywords.
I did not know there were suggestions.
There are suggestions for optimizations. Kind of like the new customer only is also a suggestion for an optimization, by the way.
Great. Okay. So then Torch. So it looks like, John, it looks like we're in the scenario now when it comes to general best practice strategies.
You want to see the coolest
we might want to remove
world?
Performance Max. Sorry, go ahead.
This is the funniest freaking thing that you'll ever see. And it's gotten to the point where you kind of just I want to just kind of like go to the headquarters of Google and just like smack somebody because it's now getting to the point of ridiculousness. We ran, this is another client that I don't have permission to share, and it's not even in my company. So I'm just going to share with you what was a brand removed. They removed the brand name from the Performance Max campaign that was always doing good. Got 38 sales on 2.4K in costs, so $62 CPAs. Man, this shit is rocking and rolling. It's actually not even in shopping; it's all in search. But once we exclude the brand name, this thing is flying. Ready? When you say, "Hey Google, give me all the search terms non-brand," Google says, "Here's $6,000, but go fuck yourself."
God.
So he said, "Hey,
that's
brand excluded." And it's like, you got it, buddy. We're just going to launch right to the moon, but we're just not going to tell you because of the negative keyword is brand. So it's like, no.
This is literally this is kind of like the tinfoil hat theory of like why they're taking more terms away and like just search terms. Because it's like, oh yeah, like it's just, we don't see them, unassigned terms. And I'm just like, I wonder how much of that is brand. I really, really, really wonder.
Well, my one use case where we exclude the brand, performance stayed the same. My keyword of brand just went away.
Yeah, that's insane. I think, well, so John, I guess this, because we're kind of diving deeper into Performance Max and strategies behind it. So to give some more context about this, so if we're running the feeder strategy with Center Shopping and Performance Max, would it it makes sense in some, would you still say that it makes sense to run that Performance Max campaign if you're on a low budget? Because I know that previously we were talking about like consolidation and why Performance Max having a consolidated but like channels all together for lower budget accounts tends to work well because you don't have to segment out all of your DSA, your search, your dynamic remarketing, all that. What would you say about that?
I got some good rules I guess we can do.
Perfect. I love that canteen, by the way.
It's awesome. It's my titanium canteen. I don't know why I like drinking this. I was using it the other day to make food in the backyard. So we got this big fire pit, so I make like coffee and stuff of that on there. I'm a big outdoorsman, so it's fun. So
that's like, do you still have one of these massive containers though?
Yeah, I got the big 1 gallon. Yeah.
Okay.
I just pee every 6 minutes, so I don't drink as much of it.
Got to make sure.
All right. So, okay. What was I saying? Yeah. So Performance Max rules. There's some few things that I run through in my brain before deploying Performance Max that are always like they're always a exclusionary decision maker if that variable is true, which means if that is the case, we can't run Performance Max. Not reliably and for long term anyway. One, we have a very high amount of brand traffic. That is something that I don't care if you exclude it as a search term. Obviously, with what we just seen right now is kind of one of the reasons, but the other one is because you've excluded it in your search terms or because you added it as a negative keyword or because you have a brand exclusion. Out of the 6 channels that Google can go on, search, shopping, YouTube, GSP, Discover, Display, demand gen, which is a display, and all that, they're all kind of pieced together, but those are the main kind of channels. When you exclude brand or negative keyword, you stop it on search, you stop it on shopping, but you still have it on YouTube, GSP, Discover, Display. So you're still going to get low CPCs, high amount of impressions, high amount of activity, high amount of spend, high ROAS because they're only 30 cents, and high engage view conversions because they're not actually clicking, and positive ROAS. But it was the wrong audience and it won't scale. So you can exclude them from internally, but don't just assume, hey, because they're not showing up here, the revenue must be all brand new people that I'm actually generating on. That's a false assumption. So my rule is if there's a high amount of brand traffic, high amount of people come to the site, high amount of people that are wanting to buy stuff, Performance Max starts day one with like a 10x ROAS. So it just instantly starts amazing. And that is false data. That's not contribution. That's attribution. Now, the other thing, go ahead.
So question on that, would you still say that Performance Max could be good if you just want to use it as a brand campaign?
Excellent. That was in my rules of my always, but yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Got it.
Yep. I have case studies for each one of these in case we want to dive deeper. So if you're like, hey, prove it, I can show it. But the second thing that I would always say is maybe we shouldn't run Performance Max, or maybe not yet, or maybe not at a high spend, is if you do have a lot of returning customers, things that are over like 25%, 30%. I know it doesn't sound as bad if there was 70% or 80%, but it's actually a time horizon issue, not necessarily a next week targeting issue. And what I mean by that is time horizon issue. Yeah, it's funny. I tell you what I'm gonna tell you, then I tell you, then I tell you what I told you. It's a weird thing that my brain has to go through for my brain to logically make sense. So in a time horizon, what ends up happening is you have a linear graph of sales. And all this is just sales that are happening. These hash things are monthly. So it's like, quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four. That ends up just happening on a graph. And that's in your big spend graph. This is, time, that's, ad spend, let's just say. So this is, sales are moving up, and this is all for our example, brand new customer, brand new company, brand new everything, just made my first sale today. That is here. That's that portion here. This can have a runway that is very long, a year, at least 2 years, potentially. What ends up happening is every new customer that happens on day one here, may also happen on day 30. And now we're on a rolling average. This one customer, all right, so you have, 30 sales by day 30, but only one is returning. Okay. Now, if there's a higher frequency or a lot of good returning customers, you may have, 100 or, one customer on day one. It may have 30 customers on day 30, and 10 of them are returning.
So as you get further and further along the path, you're just building your warm traffic more and more and more.
Due to the fact that you're growing new, you then have to assume you are growing returning. And as time goes on, the returning is cheaper. The returning is higher ROAS. The returning is lower CPA. The returning is more last click. The returning is more consistently Googling the same keyword, i.e. brand. So now, of course, why tap into the new and unknown when I know there's 462 people this year that are going to Google the brand and buy at a 5x return? It's a dumb machine. You could be like, please, Google, don't do that. And the machine's like, oh, I feel heart sympathy and empathy for you now, child. I will do. No, it's just like, beep booping in the wrong direction. So that is what I say. It can work extremely well until it notices that the people that it's converted are converting again, even more rapidly and for better and for cheaper. And when I say time horizon, after a year, your new customers go, whoa, and your returning customers go, whoa.
Yeah.
And they cross paths. Yep. So in stock trading, we call it a death cross. Is when what they call like the moving average actually goes past down the daily spend. And that means, okay, this is going to get really, really bad. It's the same thing in reverse. And so this just means once you cross the path of, we have more returning customers than new, you have to wipe it at that point. You can't be like, please go back and get me new. And they're like, I'm swimming in ROAS, shut up. And it's like, it's amazing looking. So you're not going to beg it to go the opposite way. We figured out how to do that. That was the other previous videos. We're looking at optimizing for new customer growth. Exactly. Same thing with Meta, optimizing for new customer growth, or at least what you're expecting to see in that campaign. So that's kind of the way that we have to think about things, is in the grand scheme of thing, when we're looking at where Performance Max can live, if we assume it's in middle funnel, it's not getting first click, it's not only showing up a brand, how much money are you going to add to that portion of the journey in relation to the other portions of the journey on all spends in all channels? And that's where you have to say, okay, now I know what to do. For our recent case study, we added $160,000 into Meta. And then I didn't spend any more. I reattributed $40,000 out of Performance Max into standard shopping and still got a better NCAC and still had better Performance Max ROAS. So we understood that that portion of the journey was too skewed to middle to end, and we needed more news. So we just reallocated by channel and reallocated spend intra-channel in order to push that assumption of type of traffic, and that came out correct.